Welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button. Lani's false alarm, Wendy's fuzzy memory, Paulina and Abe's secret Days of Our Lives reveals that Steve Johnson was reflective over his part in helping Clyde Weston escape, but he acted like he was just concerned about so important drama going on when Kayla Johnson quizzed him. Kayla refocused out there was some good news to report since Paulina Price was miraculously on the mend at the sanitarium. Trip Johnson and Wendy Shin were okay too, so Kayla allowed. Effects were looking up. In Wendy's sanitarium room on Wednesday's day's occasion, she flashed back to marrying Trip in prison and sounded deep in study. Trip snuck in Wendy's room and noticed that Ava Vitali had transferred her flowers to apologize for the whole fire. Although Trip knew Ava didn't mean for any of this to go down, he bothered about history repeating itself and suggested he couldn't live with anything additional passing to Wendy. Still, Wendy reminded Trip that she was impeccably able of getting herself in and out of messes, so she had no intention of letting all the chaos come between them. Wendy wondered if perhaps she imagined what happened just before they ran out of air, but Trip pushed her to tell him and sounded eager to know if she flashed back the same thing. Unfortunately, Trip and Wendy kept getting intruded as they tried to broach the content of their new marriage in the tank. In Paulina's room, Lani Grant shocked when her mama wasn't in her bed, but Eli Grant prompted her not to jump to conclusions since Abe Carver would be offered updates if anything was seriously wrong. Thankfully, it was a false alarm since Paulina was just off getting further tests done. It wasn't long until Paulina was wheeled back in with evidence that she was doing much better. Sarah Horton informed Paulina, Abe, Lani, Eli, Chanel DiMera and Johnny DiMera that Paulina's unexplained recovery was nothing short of a phenomenon. Paulina ultimately admitted they had another phenomenon to celebrate since Abe had his memory back, so Lani and the others were enraptured. Once Eli got a call, he told Lani about the job offer coming through, which was everything he asked for and further. This would mean fresh plutocrat and time at home with Lani along with the halves, but they'd have to move to Washington D.C. After letting Paulina have a visit with Jules Grant and Carver Grant, Lani and Eli broke the news about the job offer and implicit move. Since Lani said Eli would only take it if her mama could be happy for them, Paulina reluctantly went on with the idea. In the city forecourt on Day's occasion, Steve and Kayla ran into Chanel and Johnny. That led to all of them trading word, so Johnny and Chanel set up out Trip and Wendy just survived a hostage extremity. Chanel and Johnny also informed Kayla and Steve about Abe's memory coming back, so they all agreed it was truly a miraculous time in Salem. Back at the sanitarium on Wednesday's DOL show, Steve apologized to Trip for cracking his caricature when he did CPR, but Trip was just thankful that his pater saved his life. When Trip let it slip that he'd been keeping Ava's involvement in the medicine operation a secret before the hijacking, Steve was bothered. Nonetheless, Steve ultimately admitted it was Ava he was angry with, not Trip. On Day's occasion, Johnny and Chanel also paid Wendy and Trip a visit to check on them. That led to Wendy spotting Chanel's marriage ring and felicitating her along with Johnny. Trip was happy for the newlyweds too, and once he was alone with Wendy latterly, he got her to admit what she recalled from when they were running out of air in the tank. Wendy asked if Trip really proposed to her. As for Chanel and Johnny, they conceded that they hadn't been on a honeymoon yet and didn't want to go too far from home. Sarah suggested Johnny and Chanel were welcome to use the Horton cabin, so they reluctantly accepted the offer. Once Paulina and Abe participated a moment alone, they decided to keep Lexi Carver's, Jennifer K. Lee, part in healing them both a secret since no one would presumably believe it anyway. Steve and Kayla showed up in Paulina's room at one point, so they participated how pleased they were over Paulina's recovery and Abe's recollections coming back. Abe wanted to move in with Paulina again, so she was rapturous over that decision. Subsequently, Steve remained fixated on Clyde's escape and advised Kayla that the SOB had better hope the police catch up with him before Steve did. Days of Our Lives say Clyde will inescapably beget further chaos, so stick with us for prognostications on the peril that's still to come. Tate and Holly's reunion, Paulina's visit from above. Days of Our Lives reveal an emotional week in Salem as Tate visits Holly, Paulina's life hangs in the balance, and John learns a sad verity. Days of Our Lives. Will Holly Jonas tell the verity? Tate Black is hopeless to get out of that halfway house and see Holly Jonas, so he breaks out and heads over to the DiMera manse at night to see her. He gets her attention through her bedroom window and she lets him in. The teens are overjoyed to be reunited and Tate is so relieved to see that Holly is okay that he kisses her. Days of Our Lives. Tate and Holly's reunion. Paulina's visit from above. Will Holly learn that E.J. DiMera has been pertinacious on executing Tate for giving her the medicines when she knows sharp well that he didn't? Will she eventually speak up and stop lying about what happened that night? Perhaps when she sees Tate arrested again after he's caught, Holly will realize that speaking up is more important than guarding her mama's passions. Nicole Walker might not want to feel like a bad mama, but she also doesn't want to see Tate in jail. DOL, who has come for Paulina Price? As Paulina Price Carver's condition deteriorates, she's visited from an angel from above that indeed Abe Carver can see. Is this angel there to take Paulina to heaven or encourage her to live? And who's she? Who would want Paulina to stay alive on Earth to keep poor, lonely, memoryless Abe happy? Days of Our Lives. John Black's Big Troubles. John Black has a big week as he helps Steve Johnson and Ava Vitale deliverance Trip Johnson and Wendy Shin. Ava is a hot mess as she begs to know if Trip and Wendy are indeed still breathing. John and Steve also have to defy his history this week. Steve tells Marlena Evans what he knows about what happened in Greece all those times ago when Steve was still working for Victor Kiriakis and John was the pawn. When John overhears the discussion, he's in gashes. Days of Our Lives flings farewell to Lani once again for good? All products and services featured are singly chosen by editors. Still, Soaps.com may admit a commission on orders placed through its retail links, and the retailer may admit certain auditable data for counting purposes. It was awful while it lasted, but if we being honest, it was way too brief. Because Sal Stowers and Lamont Archie have formerly wrapped up their Days of Our Lives stints as Lani and Eli. We'd been staying for what felt like periods, seeing as how Lani was supposed to be released from captivity in time for the leaves, only to learn that detainments were holding it up. Further, who's going to kill Clyde? Fortunately, Lani was eventually released just as Paulina was dying from heart failure. Lani came home to Salem and the family was reunited for the first time since Abe's exposure over the summer. And we mean all of the family in proposition. The cameras always sounded to just miss poor Jules and Carver. But it couldn't last. Sitting on either side of Paulina on a sanitarium bed, Chanel and Lani smile as they lean their heads to hers. After all of our time wondering who would die to leave their heart to Paulina, Days of Our Lives pulled a fast bone on us and revealed that no one would. Rather, Lexi came down from heaven as an angel, helped Abe recapture his recollections and bring Paulina back from the point of death. While we weren't entirely sure that would be an endless fix, it looks like it was. Because on Moment's occasion, she entered the news that her heart was, miraculously, fine. And with that news, Lani decided they were no longer demanded in Salem. They suggested that this would be when Eli mentioned the possible FBI job offer and he eventually got word on the position right after Paulina and Abe recovered. He'll be a part-time FBI special agent consulting with the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. Paulina reluctantly gave them her blessing to go, but at least they stuck around long enough to compliment Chanel and Johnny on their remarriage and to reconnect with Abe for real now that he's gotten his memory back. Days. Lani hugging Paulina in the sanitarium bed, as Eli leverages Abe and Chanel watches from the door. Watch Days on Peacock $5.99. By now it's not a complete surprise that they didn't stick around.